Welcome everyone to the special holiday edition of the 2-on-1 Fast Break podcast. It's Black Friday as we're recording this, so you're getting a great deal on all your picks, free or your money back.
Are you guaranteeing their money back if they don't win?
No, I'm guaranteeing they will. That any money they use to get the picks, if they don't work out, they get the money back.
Okay, so if anyone pays us for these, they'll get their money back.
Yeah,
fair enough. Win or lose.
We haven't gotten paid yet, so I don't think that's something we have to worry about.
Getting paid plenty by our locals, though.
That's true, and you got to put your money where your mouth is in this industry, and so far it's been working out. And last week was another good instance of that, as you had a 4-1 week, bouncing back from a couple down weeks. So let's get started with the Week 12 action. Your first play of the week was the Saints-Dallas teaser, and you had Saints coming down to -2, Dallas going up to +8.5. New Orleans was that Thursday night game, and I know a late game action had you sweating that teaser a little bit, huh?
Absolutely. For those of you who don't remember, Atlanta lined up to kick a field goal with a minute left in the game that wouldn't even have tied the game, but it would have brought the score to within one, and therefore would have lost our teaser, and drilled the field goal right down the middle. However, Sean Payton, coaching genius, had called a timeout to ice the kicker, despite the fact that it's been proven numerous times that he does absolutely nothing. And he ended up missing the second one. And the final score was a 4-point win, and the tease came through.
Sean Payton, football genius, and friends of 6-point teasers everywhere. I don't know why Atlanta was trying a field goal there. The chances of 15 getting a 4th and 15, I think, is a lot better than making a long field goal, recovering an onside kick, or if you don't and you expect to stop Brees from getting one first down. Like, really, it's Drew Brees. I think he could probably get one first down.
There are a lot of times where I think a coach should think outside the box, where the time's running down and they're in field goal range and they need a field goal and a touchdown, and I do think they should just kick the field goal, and that way, if you get the ball back, you have all that time to drive. But this was not one of them. That was one of them.
Being down 4 is not one
of those situations.
You just need one touchdown.
Yes.
It's not a 2-possession game. So luckily for people that teased that down to -2, they missed the second opportunity, and that ended up paying off. And the other leg of that teaser was Dallas, who were small underdogs in that game, and they actually won that game outright 24-21 against the Giants. And we talked about how we liked getting that many points with the Cowboys because those NFC East games seem to be close, and that one certainly was.
Yeah, and we'll see with one of the plays coming up for this week that actually already happened yesterday, that divisional rivalries, teasing the underdog up is often a very, very good thing to do.
Yeah, and we will talk about that in the Week 13 play from one of those Thanksgiving contests yesterday. The lone loss you had last week was the Cleveland -2 at home against the Steelers. Cleveland it's been giving you problems this year. I think
they started off really well for me. They started off making me a lot of money,
and not so much lately though. So the Steelers they look a little rejuvenated lately, and we saw on Thanksgiving they gave the Ravens a good run for their money, and they stomped all over Cleveland the week before. Huh?
Yeah, they did. It was a bad bet. The only thing I'm going to say about this is I kind of think if you bet on Cleveland, you should have an option. Like, you know how when you play blackjack in Atlantic City and the dealer shows an ace, you can buy insurance, and that way if the dealer has blackjack, you get some of your money back. I think you should be able to lay a little more juice on Cleveland, and then if Brandon Weeden appears in the game, you get some of your money back.
Brandon Weeden Insurance.
Brandon Weeden Insurance.
Jason Campbell Insurance.
Well, Jason Campbell won me some money a couple of times this year. Brandon Weeden is even worse, but I mean, Campbell kind of came back down to earth, too.
Yeah.
First couple of games,
he's had a few games lately where he had multiple turnovers and really put that Browns defense in a hole when
I think
usually pretty solid.
I think unless the correct spot comes up, I think the ride in the Browns is kind of done.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. So that was the lone loss Week 12. So the rest of the way were all wins for you, and one of those was St. Louis, who was only a -1 favorite against the Bears at home. And they just steamrolled the Bears 42-21, as that rushing attack was all over the Chicago defense. And Zach Stacy, 100-yard performance, and then he left with a concussion. And then Benny Cunningham came in, and he had I think he had 5 10-yard runs, and he ended up with over 100 yards too.
It's amazing. My Zach Stacy over rushing yards prop hit in a game in which he left at halftime with a concussion.
Yeah, that's not something you would expect for if you were told hey, you're only getting 30 minutes out of Zach Stacy. You'd probably take the under.
And this Bears defense is legendarily bad against the rush. You see Brandon Jacobs had that 100-yard game against them. Ray Rice had an incredible game against them. These are all guys who can't do anything against anyone else. So you got a guy like Zach Stacy who is doing very well. That's what I expected. I didn't expect him to get hurt. But luckily, Benny Cunningham came in, and there was no drop-off, and it was just a complete domination from start to finish. Rams are playing very good football lately.
Yeah, they have the good pass rush with Quinn and Chris Long, and the rushing attack after the first half of the season was really stagnant. Once Zach Stacy was thrown in there, it really came alive. So it looks like he's going to be okay to play this week after that concussion last week. He passed all the protocols, and he has been practicing.
Once the Sam Bradford, Darrell Richardson combo comes out, Kellen Clemens, Zach Stacy combo comes in and makes all the difference.
Yep, that's the dream team, as the Eagles used to refer to it. It's actually Kellen Clemens and Zach Stacy. So sorry, Vince Young, you were a little too early on that one.
It's like the Josh Freeman, Doug Martin combo. They come out, Mike Glennon, Mike James / Bobby Rainey comes in, and now they're winning games too.
Yeah, it's weird how the NFL works, and they're all, even if they're taken in the 6th round or whatever, they're still top 1% of the population at playing football. So
those guys are hungry to prove themselves too.
Exactly, they can get the job done sometimes, and it's pretty interesting to see that when that happens. So moving on to the 4th play last week, you had Miami plus 4.5 against the Panthers. They were up big in that game, and then they ended up letting Carolina back into the game. Carolina actually ended up winning 20-16. So 4.5, lucky you had it at that. That half-point margin was the margin for your win last week. Did you actually, I saw on Twitter, did you actually end up taking the middle at halftime?
And this won't count, obviously, because I didn't say it on the podcast, and it's not an official play, but I did advise over Twitter at halftime taking Carolina -4 in the second half, which would left a lot of room for a middle in which you could win both bets. You could win the Miami plus 4.5 for the game and also win the second half, and it also would eliminate the risk. So you have no chance of losing anything except for the juice and a good chance to win both. And that actually did happen. That's not going to count, but if you follow me, there's another win for you there.
Yeah, it's a good thing to look out for if you're on an underdog and they get out to a huge lead early on and you have an opportunity to create a really wide span middle in that situation where like a 10-point margin, like four on one side, 4 on the other, and that anything there is a win. It's a great way to both mitigate your risk and also set yourself up for a potential double up.
Yeah, and the Dolphins were winning by 10 at halftime, and when the -4 second half spread came out, what you're essentially doing is then taking Carolina plus 6 for the game. So if you have Carolina plus 6 for the game and Miami plus 4.5 for a game, in a game where the offenses aren't dynamic and it seems like it's going to be a field goal game either way, it's something to do. It's also something to do. Yesterday it happened too with Oakland.
Yeah, Oakland got off to a huge lead, and then obviously they were big underdogs going into that game, so that also created that wide middle opportunity.
You got to pick your spots though, because it does suck you don't want to bail on a winner. If you're on the dog and the dog's up big at halftime, sometimes you want to keep the winner and not take away what looks like a really
it helps if you're watching the game. Like Oakland wasn't out playing Dallas.
Right.
They had that fluke touchdown to start the game, which probably wasn't even a touchdown. It looked like his knee was down, and it should have been called back. But you kind of sensed that Dallas was going to come back. Obviously, if you're on an underdog and they just happen to be coming out and steamrolling the other team, you don't think there's going to be a drop-off. You don't want to back out of your bet just because of that. But, look for those opportunities, and there's some value to be had there. So the 5th and final play of the week was Arizona in a first half bet for a pick'em against the Colts. And there was no Andrew Luck magic last week on that.
I took him in the first half to avoid any of Andrew Luck's crazy fourth quarter comebacks, but it didn't matter. It was complete domination from the first snap of the game.
No, 40-11 was the final in that one, and the Cardinals could do no wrong. The defense was just creating turnovers, and they were stopping Indianapolis pretty much every drive, and the rushing attack got going a little bit for the Cardinals, and Carson Palmer, he hasn't been turning it over. The O-line's doing a better job of protecting him. And Arizona's just one of those teams that are coming on late, and they're actually tied with the Niners right now in that division.
Yes, they are. West. It's funny because that whole NFC West, there's not a bad team in that league right now.
Yeah, Rams are in last place, but we just talked about them steamrolling
They're a
Chicago.
game out of a wild card spot too.
Yeah, a lot of talent in the NFC West. After a few years ago, the joke was that they
Seattle
had a chance
won the
for,
division at 7-9.
Yeah, they had a chance for. Yeah, it was the first non-500 team.
Of course, then they won a playoff game too.
Making everyone look dumb. But that was a 4-1 week for you last week. So we're going to move on to the Week 13 plays, and you have 3 plays on the docket. One of which is a 3-team teaser with one of those legs of that teaser already taking place. That was Pittsburgh plus 13, New England plus 2.5, and Alabama college pick you're throwing in there for the first time, I think, this season. It's part of your NFL stuff. Alabama pick them at Auburn. So we touched on this a little bit, but Pittsburgh getting them at plus 13 and with the teaser, and those Ravens-Steelers games are just slugfest.
If you want to make a lot of money, make a really big open teaser with any Pittsburgh-Baltimore game. Take the underdog and tease them up, and then leave the 2 spots open. Fill the second spot the next time those 2 teams play. Tease the underdog up, and then wait the whole offseason, and then take the third play the first time they play. Every game, it's within 3 to 6 points. Every single game.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact stat, but it was something crazy, like 7 out of the past 8 games between them, something like that. Were all decided by 3 points or less, and it every time, without fail, that's what happens. And Pittsburgh actually had a chance to tie the game there, but they couldn't convert the 2-point conversion. Manuel Sanders let it go through his hands, but just always close with those T teams, and yeah, getting that up to plus 13, that was pretty much as a sure bet as you can get.
There was a second last night where I actually thought Le'Veon Bell might have been dead on the field.
It didn't look good.
I thought we might have actually been watching a dead man laying on the field.
Yeah.
The helmet came flying off, which, by the way, that rule's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why it's in place. Obviously, you don't want people to continue running downfield.
Correct, and I think if the guy makes a voluntary move after the helmet's off, then you shouldn't be allowed to do that. But if your helmet comes off in midair and your body goes another half yard, you should get that half yard.
And I know I'm going to lose one of my fantasy matchups this week by less than 6 points because of that too.
Stinks.
But yeah, and I mean, we're going to see that eventually. There's just too many hard-hitting collisions in the NFL anymore. And it's going to happen someday. It's happened in college. It's happened in high school games. Sooner or later, that's going to happen, and then maybe the NFL will get really serious about their safety protocol.
The thing people keep on saying is if you go back to the leather helmets and make the players not use their helmets as a weapon and actually have to be aware of stuff like that. I don't know. That's not our job to discuss this, but it's definitely an issue. Someone's going to get seriously hurt.
Yeah. Well, anyway, getting back to the
betting.
We're not the. This isn't the morality.
Back to the important things.
The morality segment of the podcast. One other segment of that teaser, 3-team teaser, was New England plus 2.5. They're at Houston. Houston just looks like they're in shambles right now. They pretty much have given up on the season from the looks of it.
Yeah.
What are they? Is Ben Tate? Has he been surpassed by Dennis Johnson in the depth chart yet? And they're on their 3rd string running back.
Maybe for this year. Maybe I think they're ready to pack it in, get as high a draft pick as possible, get a new quarterback. And this is why you play the backup and 3rd string quarterbacks to see what you have. Case Keenum looked good for a couple of games, but you play him out, and now he's not the future.
Yeah, he regressed a little bit, and I mean, I don't want to jump the gun too much with that. We've seen what Nick Foles has gone through. He had some ups and downs, and now he looks like a solid quarterback. But he had stretches where he had a couple bad games in a row last year. So
yeah, but now Houston is going to be a top 3 pick possibly.
Yeah,
they're going to take one of those quarterbacks, and they might be back next year.
Yeah, that's certainly a possibility. They could be in the Bridgewater, Mariota sweepstakes for all those guys up there.
But the point is, they're tanking, or not tanking. The team just is quit. It looks like
not very good.
They have no passion. They have no
intensity or pride.
Nothing, none of the sorts. And even if the home field throws New England off a little bit, I think New England's going to win the game, which is all we need in the tease.
Right. Yeah. There could be a backdoor cover for that.
Yeah, sure.
That line, the original line, but getting them to just need to win the game. That certainly seems.
And that
really a good side to be on.
Alabama might be my favorite 10-team teaser side I've ever seen. For a line that's 10.5, tease that down. You do as many 10-team teasers as you want and put that in there. I can't see them losing.
You have a pretty poor record as far as college football on the site. so much so that we had to quit posting your college picks on.
It's true, which actually is a shame because they've not been bad at all
No.
for the last couple of weeks.
Just had a rocky start, huh?
Yeah, in fact, I got right now. San Jose State is playing, and the game was 42-41 at halftime.
Are you on the over?
No, I wish I was on the over. I could pack it away. Actually, on San Jose State plus 11.5, so we'll have to check on that later. But yeah, I love Alabama to win the game. Missouri is pretty much a one-dimensional team.
Auburn.
My bad. I know who they're playing.
Yes.
Auburn's pretty much a one-dimensional team. It's a terrible matchup. Auburn's done a really good job to get where they are. Great coaching. But Alabama has a great run defense. They're going to force them to try to beat them by the air. They're not going to be able to. I like that against the spread. I think this is going to be like a 42-13 kind of game.
Alabama, they're not looking past Auburn. Besides it being a rivalry game, they know that they need. It's college football. You need it to come every week, and
I think they're
one slip up, and then it's Ohio State taking their spot in the national championship game down the road. So.
I think the team's going to give McCarron a chance to showcase himself. Now he's right in the Heisman run.
He's in that Heisman conversation, especially with what's going on with Jameis Winston. So A.J. McCarron getting a lot of love in sort of like a lifetime achievement award type situation. So yeah, I could definitely see them carrying it out a little more and really going through the jugular and trying to run up that score a little bit, obviously, with how that affects the BCS and everything.
San Jose State is up by 15 in the fourth quarter. I had them as 11.5-point dogs. That's looking good.
That's good. maybe get a in-game middle on that or something. So that was the first play for Week 13. Obviously, it's Pittsburgh plus 13, New England plus 2.5, Alabama pick'em. Obviously, Pittsburgh already played, so if you didn't see that on Twitter, Dan both threw that out prior to the game's Thursday, and then we retweeted that on Philly Fast Break. So should have been able to catch that one, but if you want to throw a different team in there as the third leg, certainly do that. Another one you like, your second play of Week 13 is the St. Louis Rams, who we talked a little bit about today. Plus 10 at the 49ers.
It's all the way down to plus 8 now.
So it's down to plus 8. You got it at plus 10. Hopefully some people out there that saw you post that did as well.
I still kind of like it even at 8. I think that this is going to be a very good game. San Fran has not been impressive lately. You mentioned when we were talking about the Rams last game how good their defense has been playing, getting to the quarterback. And Kaepernick had a good game on paper on Monday night, but he didn't look very good. He threw a bunch of touchdowns to Anquan Boldin. I don't think Anquan Boldin is going to have big games against good defenses.
Yeah, the first one was just after a turnover.
Yeah.
They got the ball in the red zone, and that's great that they converted, but it wasn't like it was a long drive down the field or anything.
I think this is one of those games where it's just going to be like a ground pound game. Both teams are just going to run the ball a lot. It is home, which scares me a little bit because San Fran tends to do well at home. But I just think that these two teams, neither of these teams has an offense to put the other one away completely. And to get more than a touchdown in a situation like that, I think that the line's just a little bit inflated considering the fact that San Fran is perceived as an elite team.
I agree. The Niners, they don't have the dynamic offense to really run away from teams. It's going to be, you said it's going to be a ground and pound game. That's every 49ers game.
Yeah.
Like, that's what they do. They play solid defense, and they pound Frank Gore through the tackles, and 10's a lot. So, I mean, obviously I think San Fran wins this game, but getting 10, that's a decent spot to be in, and it seems like you were obviously on the right side with that, with the line coming down since then.
Yeah, like getting the best line like that is kind of like getting someone to go all in against you when you have aces. It's like you're not going to win every time, but if you do it consistently, you're going to win in the long run.
Right. You always want to be ahead of the line movements, and you certainly were here.
So ahead of the line movements also. My next play,
segue, third play of Week 13, the New York Jets, you have it minus 1.5 at home against the Dolphins.
It went up a point. Doesn't really matter.
Yeah, so it's going up to 2.5.
Yeah, but between 1 and 3 is usually not.
Until it gets to 3, it
yeah.
doesn't really matter too much. But what about the Jets lately is making you go side with them in this one?
This is an incredible matchup for them. Miami, they played a really good game against Carolina, fell short. I made money on them last week. One thing I do like doing, I seem to do this a lot, is teams that I win on one week, I like to go against the next week. First off, playing in New York is hard. As good as the Saints are, the Saints lost in New York, and the Saints are Super Bowl contenders. As bad as Geno Smith is, the running game is decent, the offensive line is good, and the defense is very good. And, with Miami, they have all those linemen who are sitting in timeout for bullying each other, for calling each other names or something.
Yeah.
They have third stringers on their offensive line. They're going to be in Tannehill's face all game. It wouldn't surprise me if New York can win this game strictly on defensive touchdowns and field position here.
Yeah, the Dolphins had that game a couple weeks back where they have like 3 rushing yards on the game. It wouldn't surprise me.
You think Lamar Miller and Daniel Thomas are scared? Is Thomas out for the year? I think Daniel Thomas might actually be hurt.
Oh, I haven't heard anything.
I have to double check that. But either way, whether he's playing or not, there's no one in the rushing game that scares them. There's no one in the passing game that the corners and the Jets can't contain.
Yeah.
I don't think Mike Wallace is going to go off again like he did last week. He seems to show up once every 9 weeks.
Even though he had a good week last game, Tannehill didn't make good throws on that long bomb. He underthrew him each time, and the corners just made bad plays. Wallace did a good job coming up with them, but it wasn't like they were clicking on all cylinders.
And if ever there was a play where I'm not really betting on it, it's not like I'm saying, I got faith in the Jets. I love the Jets. I think Geno Smith is good. It's more of in this spot, completely betting against the Dolphins. I think this is one of those games where they're just going to look terrible.
All right, so those are the 3 plays for Week 13 from Dan. Pittsburgh plus 13, New England plus 2.5, Alabama pick'em. That's a 3-team teaser. St. Louis plus 10 at San Francisco, and the New York Jets minus 1.5 against the Dolphins. So 4-1 last week. Let's hope for another good week in Week 13. We're going to move on to our Outlet Pass segment of the podcast, where we take a few reader questions, getting a little assist from them. So we have 3 to go through this week. The first one is from KMac732, Kirill Palatnik. He asked, now that we've seen some college basketball, there's been some high-profile matchups against all those super freshmen, who should the Sixers take if they get the first overall pick?
Well, being the NBA expert that you are, why don't you take this one?
All right. My opinion is there's 3 clear-cut guys that have emerged, obviously. Jabari Parker, Julius Randle, and Andrew Wiggins.
Really? You think those are the big 3?
I do.
That's a way to go out on a limb there.
I haven't gotten to my point yet. I'm recapping.
I just had that be a dig.
I'm setting the conversation up for discussion,
Go ahead.
So, also, Marcus Smart's played really well, too.
He's been awesome.
And he's in the line to possibly get, the James Naismith Award for the most outstanding player in the country. But I think anybody that takes him, they're going to reach up just because they need a point guard. Obviously, Michael Carter-Williams playing, he's looked like an all-star at times. He struggled a bit as a rookie in other games, but he looks like a keeper. At the very least, he looks like a great starting point guard in the NBA for a long time. So I don't think Marcus Smart would be a pick for them. Julius Randle is the one guy out of those 3 that I initially mentioned that I don't think is a great fit for the Sixers. Between Randle and Knoll, who projects as the starting center down the road, those guys really has a good outside shot. It'd be tough to play those guys together. They both want to be in the lane, and they would just clog things up offensively. So I think pretty much you're left with Parker or Wiggins. Parker has the most polished NBA-ready game at this point. He has all the tools. He's tearing it up right now, averaging in the mid-20s. He's playing center at times for them, and he can just do it all. He projects as either a small forward or a great stretch 4 in the NBA. Either one would help the Sixers with what they're doing.
Is he projected like a Kevin Durant kind of player?
Yeah, really efficient, great outside shooter, can score, but he's actually a better rebounder than Durant, too.
Okay.
So, I don't know what the...
I remember Durant playing center for Texas a little bit, too.
And then they lost in round 32 because Rick Barnes is a terrible coach.
Oh, yeah.
And I think they lost to USC that year. But, so I think... and then Andrew Wiggins, he's just kind of fitting into Kansas' system right now. They don't need him to be the guy because they have so much talent on that team. But he's more of a raw prospect than Parker. So I think between those 2, you can't really go wrong either way. I think the Sixers would be filling that need at the wing that they have, especially considering you figure Turner's going to be gone. I would go with Parker if I had to pick somebody, just because you always need that number 1 option on offense, and he looks to be that guy. Wiggins might be more of a be great at everything, but not be that elite scorer.
Luckily, with the way the Sixers have been looking, they might not need a guy to be great at everything. It seems like they have some pieces, or if they can just get that dynamic scorer, that might be the missing piece.
Right, and not to say that Parker's not good at a lot of things, because he is, but eventually you're going to need that guy to, when you're down one at the end of the game, like, hey, you're the guy that needs to get a bucket for us. And Parker, more so than Wiggins, who's a little more of a raw athlete at this point, I think he projects better to be that guy. So Jabari Parker would be my answer.
Which is great, because everyone got so upset that the Sixers won a couple of games in the first month, saying, oh, there goes our chance for Wiggins. Maybe Wiggins isn't even the guy who's the answer.
I mean, considering how well Parker's played, it's not even clear-cut that Wiggins is the number one pick now, though.
That's very true.
And I mean, I kind of glossed over Randall because I don't think he's a good fit for the Sixers, but he could be the first overall pick too. He's looked like a beast. He's just dominating people down in the block. He just looks bigger and stronger than everybody else in college.
How's Aaron Gordon looked?
I actually did get a chance to watch him.
I have not either.
I did. I watched him. I watched him against Drexel the other night, and they're playing Duke tonight. He didn't look great. He doesn't. I mean, you can tell he's a great athlete, but he doesn't have any post moves at this point. He doesn't have a really refined jumper, so offensively, it's kind of like he can either bully people once in a while in the post, or he can work for offensive rebounds. But that's all he has of his game right now. Obviously, he can jump out of the gym, and you see it's all there for him to eventually be a great NBA player. But he still has a lot to learn. So I think he's pretty clearly in a tier below those other guys that we discussed.
Right. But still would have gone number one overall if this were last year.
If it was, yeah, exactly. Or Michael Carter Williams. But all right, so that was the question from Creel.
We're running low on time. Let's answer these last two in a rapid fire format.
All right, we do have it's a holiday edition. We have holiday activities to get to. So E-Money Baby sent the next two questions to us. That's Eric Rooney. His first question: in the NFL, what fantasy football bust this year is most likely to have a bounce back year next year, excluding those guys that, like Julio Jones, who are just out with a major injury or something?
First guy I thought of about this is, and I don't think he's going to be a superstar. I don't think he ever actually was, but I think next year you're going to be okay to go back to Matt Ryan as your quarterback. I think he'll have Julio Jones back healthy. He'll have Roddy White fully healthy, and I really think that team is going to spend their offseason picking up in the draft and via free agency some more weapons for him. So just when I heard that question, that's the first guy that came to mind. Last year, he was a very valuable player because he was not drafted very high, yet he produced in a very key position and won a lot of people a lot of games. And this year, he's just been absolutely awful to the point where people are dropping him for the likes of Mike Glennon and such. And I think next year, there's a very good chance with Julio back, who's an absolute beast, and the team overall being more healthy, that he goes back to at least being a viable starter. And then because of how poorly he played this year, you might be able to get him a couple of rounds later than his value is going to show.
I like that one. Yeah, certainly everything's gone wrong that could have gone wrong for the Falcons this year, so I could see him being a great buy low candidate next year. I'm going to cheat a little bit, and my answer is C.J. Spiller.
No, that's my second thought. That's a very good answer.
Saying I'm cheating a little bit because he did get in. He had that high ankle sprain.
Yeah, but when he's been hurt, he hasn't been doing too much.
Exactly. So I think next year, Fred Jackson, I don't know his contract situation. I assume he's still with the team next year, but even if he is, I think he's another year older. There's been a lot more wear put on him this year. Spiller's just too good a player. He's still young. It's not like he's that 30-year-old running back about to fall off the cliff. And I think people are going to remember what he did this year and just have that, I don't want anything to do with C.J. Spiller, and you might be able to get him like the second round next year, and he'll go back to putting up those top 5 potential numbers next year.
I mean, he has all the talent in the world. There's never a question with that. And yeah, I definitely think things haven't gone his way, both when he's played and when he hasn't. I think that's a good answer and a name I also thought of.
All right, so we both like our answers, and hopefully you do too. Moving on to the third question in our Outlet Pass segment, also from E-Money Baby, we had, now that Seattle Seahawks, they've actually recently moved to being the Super Bowl favorite as far as the odds go, and they passed Denver. So Dan, if you had to put money on one team to win the Super Bowl, not necessarily to win it, but if you're placing a Super Bowl winning wager based on what the odds are, what you can either think, who do you think the favorite is, or where do you see the best value in placing such a bet?
It's a very interesting question because there's a couple of teams. You can look at a team like Arizona, or excuse me, or even Baltimore after last night, right back in the playoff picture. So if you look at what the odds are on the books, they're like 60-1, 70-1 for these teams. You could say like, wow, those odds are way too high. That they don't reflect how the team odds should be. But that doesn't mean they're going to win. They might maybe instead of being 60-1, Arizona should be 35-1. But in the end of the day, do you see the Cardinals going into Seattle and winning a playoff game with Carson Palmer?
I do not.
I do not either. Seattle's been very unimpressive at points this year, not at home. But if everything goes the way it looks like it's going, they're not going to have to play away from home, even in the playoffs. I think their path to the Super Bowl is they're going to have to choke to not make it. Denver, on the other hand, looked really shaky. I know that the whole Peyton Manning and cold weather story gets shoved down everyone's throats and it's annoying, but it's pretty valid. AFC, I think, is way up in the air. So you know what? I wouldn't hate putting some money on the Patriots right now.
I was maybe going to throw out the Patriots because they're 7-1, which it's almost twice as much as what Denver, Seattle, the two favorites are, and it looks pretty clear that New England has a good road to the second seed because whoever Denver and Kansas City they're playing again this week, so one of them is going to have as many losses as New England, and New England has a tiebreaker over Denver.
Yes.
So I think New England has a good shot at the second seed, and then they've already proven they can meet Denver. So if they were to meet in the AFC Championship game, it would be at home for Denver as opposed to when they had to go to Foxborough last week. But it'll still be cold in Denver.
Absolutely.
And it's not like back in the day when Peyton had those home games in Indianapolis and they were indoors on turf. So I think New England at 7-1 is, and then you think my pick as far as like best value.
And they made the insane decision to have the Super Bowl in New York this year. It's going to be absolutely frigid.
Yeah.
And you take New England at 7-1, you end up with a team in the Super Bowl that's so used to playing in those conditions.
So good. Tom Brady, probably the best cold weather quarterback
in
the league.
And whereas if, like what we said, if Seattle's able to run the table, they play most of their games in warm weather or indoors.
Yeah.
And they've shown that when they're not in their dome with their 900 guys who are suspended for PEDs and the fans going nuts, they've not done too well.
So are you still going with Seattle? As far as your answer?
No, I'm going. The Pats is my answer, but I'm thinking. I'm thinking the Pats play Seattle in the Super Bowl, and then I like the 7-1 because you're not even going to have to hedge because I think the Pats are going to be able to beat the Seahawks.
All right, so we're both going with Seattle.
The Patriots.
New England. All right, yeah, we're both going with New England. Thanks for the questions, guys.
We got the holiday food on our mind. We're ready to get
great
here.
questions, and everybody. Hopefully, we have 3 plays on the week for Week 13. Hopefully, they're all winners, and everybody have a great rest of the holiday weekend. We'll talk to you next week.